I see these beamers go down the road with 328 I63 465, and it's like, why is it named after a printer?
My name's Dane, better known as Saving Salvage. I just decided to do the worst thing possible for me.
You say worst thing possible. Why is that?
Because I'm just a massive introvert, basically. So picking up a camera for me would be my worst nightmare.
What happened the night you uploaded your first video?
Refreshing how many views it got every 5 seconds. It's like, oh, I've got 10 views. It's just a really weird feeling. It's out there and everyone can see it. The early days, it was quite tight. Everyone's always just called me mental because I spunk 10 grand on a car and have no idea if I'm going to get any money out the back of it. What's the worst case scenario? This is going to cost to fix. If it's within budget, then it's fine.
I cannot believe I am saying this, but I have just bought myself a Lamborghini Huracán.
You bought a Huracán off of Matt Armstrong. Were you not concerned that if Matt wasn't going to fix this, that you thought, is this the best idea in the world?
He said he didn't want to fix it because obviously he crashed his Gallardo. I messaged him and said, do you have any cars that you've bought that you don't want to fix? And then he went, actually, I've got.
Dean, Mr. Saving Salvage.
How are we doing?
Very well, thank you. I'm glad that you're finally sat in the back of the van studio. We're parked down the bottom of a very large place that is got cars dotted around everywhere of yours.
It's pretty much my life, yeah.
I keep turning around the corner. I'm like, oh, there's his GT4. Oh, there's his RS7 over there. There's another thing under a cover.
Just dotted around and abandoned.
Well, no doubt many people would have clicked on this episode because they already recognise you. However, in your own words, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so my name's Dane, better known as Saving Salvage, and about 6 years ago now, I just decided to do the worst thing possible for me, pick up a camera and start filming cars that need a little bit of work doing, and stick it on YouTube and see what happens. That's kind of...
Now, you say worst thing possible.
For me, yeah.
But for you, why is that?
Because I'm just a massive introvert, basically, and I just don't go out much, so I'm quite keep myself to myself. So picking up a camera for me would be my worst nightmare.
It's funny you say that because obviously in doing the research for the episode, even though I've seen episodes more recently of your videos, I hadn't seen the first video you'd ever uploaded 5 years ago.
Have you seen it now?
I've seen it now. It was one of the first things that I watched, and it consisted of you sat on the sofa with an iPhone camera filming, and it was an intro to the channel and then an intro to the video to then get into it. But that's where everything began. You've got to start somewhere, right? Yeah. And that car that you started with was an Audi RS3.
That's it, yeah.
How did you come 5 years ago, which is right at the beginning of the embryo of car rebuilding on YouTube?
Yeah.
What made you get an Audi RS3 and start doing that?
For me, it's always got to be a car that I want to work on, because that will come across on camera. If I want to work on it, it will come across on camera that I've got enthusiasm for that car. So it's always got to be that. I do like Volkswagen Audi group cars, so that's where I love all of Volkswagen Audi group cars. So an RS3 for me was like the best car I could get, but if it's crashed, it'll be a lot cheaper. So just took out a massive loan when I bought it and hope for the best.
So paint me the picture. 5 years ago, sat on that sofa, iPhone camera, massive loan, Audi RS3. Why? Where did that come from? What made you click record on that camera and be sat on that sofa 5 years ago?
So I guess it started, I was a mechanic for Audi and Volkswagen. So I'd always kind of you'd get a trade-in coming at a dealership and they would send it to auction and there's a little bit of money in it. So I was like, right, I'm gonna buy this. They'll let you have it at a trade price and then I'll sell it privately with a little bit of profit. So I did that for a little bit, a couple of years. And then I was like, well, hang on, how can I make more profit but doing the same thing? And it's buy a car that's got a problem, because I can then fix it obviously for free. So then I started buying cars with mechanical problems, and that kind of just escalated into cars that have got damage. And I was like, well, I don't mind having a go at rebuilding a car. I've got no experience in it, but I'll give it a go. And I remember buying a Scirocco. This is before even YouTube. And it was said Scirocco R. So I thought it was a Scirocco R. I had it delivered. Turned out it was a Scirocco R-line. And it was just a 2-litre diesel. And I was like, I was absolutely gutted because I spent way too much money on it thinking it was something it's not. And when I got that car, I was like, that is really bad. I have no idea what I'm doing here. And I ended up just selling it. And I didn't do anything again for a while. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a go again. But the RS3 wasn't that bad a damage. It was quite minor. It was only a category N, which means non-structural damage. So I thought, we'll start easy. We'll go with that. So that's kind of
Well, it seems to be that that's the right decision, because from there has become lots more cars over the years of the channel. As I mentioned, some of them as I came in, undercovers, the ones that are hidden, not on the channel yet, and then some of them for all to see that you've been working on. But some of your other projects, like I picked up when you were doing the GT4, the white GT4, because I absolutely loved those cars. Like that engine is peak Porsche for me. It's just such an amazing piece of kit. But there's been so many crash damaged building YouTube channels popping up, especially in the last 2 years, where you've just got so many views across so many channels that are now in the space, and channels that are doing well, like yourself, Chris Slicks, Matt, Tavares. There's so many people telling so many stories about these rebuilding cars. But what did the space look like when you actually started?
So when I started, I was watching YouTube channels like Archie Hamilton Racing, TG and stuff like that. They weren't doing they weren't doing crash cars, but they had cars. They were making money off these supercars. And I just remember saying to my wife, I was like, how cool would it be to be able to buy like an Audi RS3 and actually make money from doing content on it? It'd be like, that's like a dream come true, because I always waste so much money on cars. And then this one video popped up. I think I did a video on my channel a couple of years ago. It was from the States, because someone called B is for Build. And he had a Nissan GTR, and the video got like 6-7 million views. And I was absolutely hooked to that whole series of him rebuilding it. And I was like, there's no one in the UK doing it. At that time, there's nothing in the UK. So I was like, maybe I should just try it. Get a car, pick up a camera, and just upload a video, see what happens. I had no intention of it doing well at all. I just thought, I'll give it a go.
So what happened the night you uploaded your first video? Or talk me through that first week. What was the response to it?
I was just glued to my, like, refreshing how many views it got every 5 seconds. It's like, oh, I've got 10 views. And it's like, it's just a really weird feeling, because once it's out there and everyone can see it. But I just remember like waiting for comments, like good or bad, what are people going to think, what people going to say. And I just remember just being glued to my app, just refreshing it every 10 seconds to see how many people subscribed or viewed the video.
So you obviously had your bit of inspiration, which was the person that you'd found in the US that was called B is for Build.
That's it, yeah.
Right, so you had like a piece of inspiration. Did you actually know any YouTubers from the UK, or like have any of those people in your contact book?
Nothing at all.
So this was completely raw, just going into it. And what year? So that was 2019.
2019, I think it's February 2019.
So you've still got things like the studio apps around, and there's kind of more tools than right back in the original days than there's actually going on.
Yeah.
So what was like, when you got to the second video, how well had the first one done? Like, had it done well enough for you to think, I'm going to go again? Like,
I can't really remember too much, but I do know that your first video is not automatically going to guarantee you 10,000 views. It's like you have to play the long game. You just have to forget about views in your first year or two and just be consistent. And I think I don't know who told me that, but someone did. And it's just like, don't worry about the views. The views will come as long as the content's good and you're consistent. So I just tried not to worry about it. Obviously, I kept refreshing, obviously, see if I got a spike in views or anything like that, but I just didn't worry about it. And I just made sure I was just consistent uploading videos and obviously trying to improve each time as well. So
you've been there right from the start, from that 2019. We then had COVID and the world shut down. Everybody started watching YouTube. Was that a massive growth period for the channel?
I can't really remember, to be honest. I don't think so. I know it was for like Matt and stuff, wasn't it, as a massive growth. But we were still working, so I was still driving because everyone was in lockdown, but we were considered a business that was allowed to keep going. So we were still delivering cars to customers.
So you'd left the job as a mechanic at the VAG Group dealers then?
Yeah, I actually left that back in 2015, so way before I started YouTube.
But that's where you'd got the skills from to give you the idea of doing YouTube.
Yeah.
But you'd left that and you'd started a transport business?
I actually went driving trucks for a couple of years on nights, because I kind of left working as a mechanic, because for me, I was like, I'm not going to get any higher than what I am now. I'm not going to earn any more money. So I'll be doing this for the same amount of money for the rest of my life, which I didn't want to do. So I was like, I don't know what I want to do yet. I'm just going to leave. So I went to start driving trucks on nights, which is way better money, but it gave me time then to sitting behind a wheel for 10 hours a day. It gives you time to think about what you want to do. So I was doing that. And then I was still like building cars on the side, but I just wasn't filming it because I had the workshop for repairing the trucks and stuff. And one day I was like, I've got a trailer. So I was like, right, now I've got a little Touareg, I've got a trailer, I can go pick up cars. And I just bought a new car from my local Audi dealer. And I went down, I was like, hang about, I've got a trailer now. So if you ever need me to pick up any like dealer transfers or anything like that, or deliver cars to customers, if I'm not busy, I can do it. And I was friends with the head of business at the time. And he was like, yeah, no, that sounds cool. Like off the cuff. And then a couple of months later, he just rang me up and said, yeah, we need a car picking up from Brighton Audi. Can you do it? I was like, yeah, I can do it. No problem. Literally. And that was my first job. And then it just snowballed into transport after that. So I ended up leaving driving trucks to then go full-time working for myself, picking up cars.
So you've been doing that for 4 years before starting the YouTube channel, and it's going well and it's doing good.
Yeah.
But doing the YouTube channel, as you mentioned, is someone that's introverted and spends a lot of time on their own, clearly, their own thoughts and time to think.
So, yeah.
How big a deal was that to put yourself on camera for the first time?
Massive. Yeah, that first video, it took me like 2 hours to film. I made sure everyone was out of the house because I didn't want anyone to see me filming. And I must have done that intro 100 times, I don't know. And I still wasn't happy with it, but I was like, I don't see how I'm going to get any better than that.
Had you told anybody else you were doing it?
My wife obviously knew about it. My parents probably not. I probably think I just said, I've just put out a video and then just left it. I didn't give them the link to anything like that. I just told them I did it. And I think I just left it at that.
And when did they find out that you were doing YouTube? And how does that feel? Because I've never been in a position where I'm kind of that way inclined. I've always been ridiculously loud and extroverted.
Yeah.
It's kind of easy to see.
Yeah.
But I can imagine if it was on the other foot, that's quite a big deal when people start to come across that content. And I'm kind of thinking of the audience watching, like those guys thinking, oh, Jesus, that's such a big thing to kind of do that.
Yeah, so obviously my friends and family, they know that I'm introverted. So they'd be like, oh, that's a bit weird, like you doing a video like this. I suppose at first they didn't take it seriously. I didn't really take it seriously because it was relatively unknown at the time. So they were probably shocked at first. I've never sent them links or anything like that. I've never said, oh, go and watch my video. I've just uploaded a video.
And not only, what I find fascinating about that is that you've had to get the confidence when you're that way inclined to actually upload the video. But you mentioned you took out a loan to actually do it as well. So you put quite a bit of a risk into buying that crash car. Do you remember how much that first car was?
Yeah, it was 11 grand. But for me, I mitigate risk by worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, it's still worth 11 grand. Even if I start fixing it and can't finish it, it's still going to be worth 11 grand. So for me, the worst case scenario is I'll just sell it and get my money back. And which is how I always go through life. If anything I buy, it's what's the worst case scenario this is going to cost to fix. And if it's within budget, then it's fine.
If you need help with your digital marketing, then you need to click the link in the description and get in touch with me. I have my own agency, Tweak Marketing, which is here to help you take steps forward with your business. We specialize in design, websites, PPC, SEO, ways to help you grow your business. We deal from small clients all the way up to global companies and are ready to take on any project that comes across our desk. I hope you enjoy this episode. How long did it take then, though, to actually see a little bit of return and see some cash coming back from YouTube and be monetized?
So my first video that kind of got me a jump in subscribers was my Audi RS3, actually. I bought it. It was abandoned for like four years. And I remember being at a wedding in Ireland and I was like, oh my God, the video is doing really well. I'm getting loads of subscribers. And that's when I first hit 1,000 subscribers. And I think that was about 7 months in.
Was that the second build?
I can't remember if it was a second build or not. 2 or 3 in. It's been so long now, I can't even remember, to be honest. But I think it was maybe the second or third.
And when you can see that going up, is that when your mind then goes, even as someone that's introverted, oh, hang on a second, there is something in this. This works. I knew this was going to happen. Do you then get more belief that it was going to turn into what it has done today?
I don't think I've ever sat with a long-term plan of like, in 5 years, I want 500,000 subscribers. I've always just been like, I'll just take each video as it goes and I'll keep posting. If I can improve and I can gain subscribers, that's great. But I've never had a long term. I still don't have a plan for it. It's just keep going and do what I'm doing. If it gets better, it gets better.
But when did you realise that it was actually something that could maybe fund the next build and the next build and the next? But how long was that from starting to happening? Like a couple of years in?
Yeah, I'd probably say a couple of years in. Yeah. Because to start with, I didn't like the RS3. I think I made maybe a couple of grand on it, to be honest. But I wasn't concentrating on that. It was, as long as I didn't lose money, I didn't care. Because the whole point was just to keep building with content and stuff like that and build the channel.
And did you ever edited prior to doing this?
Nope.
So that was a whole learning curve as well. What did you begin editing in?
Power Director. I just remember it because it was they had a little what's it called, where they put their logo at the bottom of the screen, because I didn't pay for the full version, so just at the bottom of my first video.
Yes, I remember it.
Power Director.
Yes, yeah. When I watched it last night, right at the beginning.
That's because I paid for the cheap version, so I had to have that little print on the bottom corner. So it's just a pack. I just literally went on Google and went like editing software for Windows, because I did it on my Windows laptop, and that's the first thing that came up. So I was like, right, I'll buy the cheap version for a year. And that's what happened. And then I just put all the clips in, just messed around with it and uploaded it.
So back then, you mentioned you had the guys in the US doing it. How long was it then before you noticed people like Matt starting to rebuild cars after the Crash TT, and other people kind of in the space from the UK coming on board with that? Did you kind of notice that creeping onto your feeds and starting to see these guys popping up?
Yeah, I guess it was after about a year, because I don't think I saw Matt. I think the first video I saw of Matt was his S5, because obviously I like Audi, so that's the one that popped up for me. And I think it was around about a year after I started. But there's literally no one when I started doing it, absolutely no one. And now there must be, I don't really know how many channels, 40, 50.
There's like a funnel going on with the channels, isn't there? It's just like everyone picks one as like you did at the beginning, like the US channel. And they're like, right, okay, that's going to give me a great, if I can kind of pick apart what that channel's doing a little bit and see if I can kind of work with it myself.
Yeah.
But there is so many people that obviously sat there, we're going into a new year wondering, could I make that work? Do you think there's a huge difference though between when you started 5 years ago and making the same channel work now, with how saturated the space is?
Yeah, I'd say definitely. I'd say it'd probably be a lot harder to do now, just because there's so much choice and so much competition. And I don't necessarily see YouTubers as competitions. I don't see Chris, Matt or anything like that as competition. I see them as they help, because what's stopping you from watching all three of us? There's nothing, is there? In fact, if you watch one, you're probably more likely to watch the others as well. Therefore, we're not competition. We're all helping each other. But now there's just so many like up and coming smaller channels as well. It's what you can't watch all of them. It's impossible. So you have to kind of pick maybe 2 or 3.
So is it that fight for time that's coming that is going to kind of make the entry more difficult into doing it?
Yeah.
Who do you then think will succeed? What types of people will succeed that then come through from that?
It's just all about the thumbnail, the title, and your first 20 seconds. You need to just grab someone in the first 20 seconds.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Because the much I've learned is it's all about like getting people towards the end of a video these days. Like it's like how many people can you get towards the end of the video? Would you say that if somebody was starting versus kind of what YouTube is like a few years ago, they need to focus on nailing maybe a 10 to 15 minute video rather than going in with something that's 40 minutes long?
Yeah, possibly, because I've slowly made my videos longer. They started out between sort of 15 and 20 minutes. Now they're more like between 20 and 30 minutes. A lot of people in the comments, they do prefer longer videos. But I suppose if you're starting out, no, I don't necessarily think it matters on the video length. If you've got someone's attention, they're going to keep watching to the end of the video. So I don't think it really matters how long that video is, as long as you've got their attention.
When you picked up those first 3 projects, you mentioned there was the RS3, there was the S3.
Yeah, and I think I had an S4 as well.
And an S4. Where did those cars come from?
The Audi S3 I got off eBay. The S4 and the RS3 come from Copart.
So Copart was still a big thing back then. Obviously, people know about it now through all the videos that's done. They've had the cheapest marketing of their lives, Copart. I'm convinced on it. Have you noticed a huge difference between the values of cars back then and what they sell for now?
Salvage cars have always gone for ridiculous money, but it hasn't helped like what we do promoting, you can go and buy this car for this and you can sell it for this. Once you've done, you can make all this money. So people are naturally going to Copart and looking. And they're buying cars from that. So there's no doubt we've pushed up the prices of Copart cars and salvage cars in general. But they've always been high, because people always think you can make money on salvage cars even before. I mean, you've got people doing it as full-time businesses that aren't filming it. So it's not like we're the only ones doing it.
And that's a person that goes to Copart and buys one of the cars that comes up. They've got like workshops. They just strip the cars apart for the parts and they're putting them on eBay and then essentially just trying to sell all the parts off the cars for other cars that have been crashed.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously you've got people fixing them as well. So like salvage rebuilds, they've been doing this for like 25 years. But they have only been filming it for the last 5.
And that's where that comes from. Because there was people, like when people say that it wasn't about the car rebuilding, Wheeler Dealers did their Trading Up series. I watched that as a kid. People have always enjoyed watching someone go from X to Y and kind of that journey of moving it along. Your build, so at the beginning of the channel, I'm not sure, because you mentioned you've been telling me about like what's going on with the Huracán. So I know we're kind of reaching ahead. At the beginning, all the builds then, the goal of which was to take the audience along and show what profit could be made from doing it, right? Do you remember like the profit you made on like the RS3 and like those initial builds and what that looked like with kind of the minor damage vehicles?
Yeah, so it was, I can't remember the exact figure, but it was a couple of grand, I think it was. So it was, I bought it for like 11, spent 5 on it, sold it for 18 grand, something like that. I mean, that was quite common. So the S3, again, I think I paid like 1,500 quid for it. I didn't spend much on it and I sold it for like 4 grand. So the aim, I suppose my aim back then wasn't, making money on the car was a bonus. I just wanted content to grow the channel. So I didn't really care as long as I didn't lose money on the builds, because obviously that was pointless.
Do you think these days, so you have a build like the Huracán, for example, do you think with the money that you put into parts rebuilding that car that you could sell it for more than the total cost of everything you needed to put that back together?
I still don't know, because I still have a long way to go, but I think it'll be okay.
Would you still like to keep that a key philosophy of the rebuilding?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
That each car actually has profit in it. Because 100%. With the big channels now, it's a case of getting the videos out, which is completely fair, and putting the spend into making sure videos go out on time and then those videos perform really well. Yeah. But do you think there's something to be said still for making sure that the audience can see that there's kind of a purpose to actually doing each build?
Yeah, for me, 100%. I still, out of principle, wouldn't pay way too much for a car because it's crash damage, because this is ridiculous. So I'd always still make sure there's money in the car. Like, I'm not going to go out and spend 70 grand on a crashed M3 if I could spend 65 grand on a non-crashed one. It's just ridiculous.
So talk us through one of your biggest purchases of the channel, a huge video that went live. Because I've seen, what I've liked about your content is I've enjoyed watching like the van videos as well. Yeah. Because I'm desperate to do on my fishing channel, which is my total other life, I'm desperate to do like a fishing van build and auction it off through a thing next year. Totally for it. So like watching your van videos have been brilliant.
Yeah.
But that Lamborghini Huracán, that must have been a major purchase. You bought a Huracán off of Matt Armstrong, who many say is the GOAT of rebuilding cars on YouTube these days. Were you not concerned that if Matt wasn't going to fix this, that you thought, is this the best idea in the world? What gave you the idea and what made you want to buy that Huracán from Matt?
I think, I don't know if, so he said he didn't want to fix it because obviously he crashed his Gallardo. I think that's true. So, he had it for a while. I think he had it for over a year. Yeah. And I know he has loads of cars that sit there for a while and just wait for the right time to bring them on. And I think he did intend to bring it on, but then he crashed his Gallardo and it was a very similar repair. And I just he didn't message me. I messaged him and said, do you have any cars that you've bought that you don't want to fix? And then he went, actually, it's probably just right timing. He was like, actually, I've got this Huracán. Obviously now I've crashed the Gallardo. I don't know when I'm going to get around to the Huracán. So he was obviously keen to offload it. So I went down and viewed it and I was like, I don't really want this, but I think it'll be really good for the channel. And that's kind of what I was like, oh, bugger, I'll just have it.
And was that the same kind of thought process and the same kind of risk as it was when you did the first build, like the RS3, and actually started the channel? Was this a whole nother level up for the kind of content getting into doing a supercar? Or do you think that the supercars won't necessarily outperform things like RS3s these days?
See, loads of people love my cheap cars because obviously they're more relatable to a lot of people. And I like doing them as well because I don't mind doing cheap cars as well because it's less risky as well. But yeah, I think my most viewed video is a T-Roc. Like the most unsuspecting car you would ever think. It was just a Volkswagen T-Roc car. And it wasn't even crash damaged. It had been like, someone had crashed it and bodged it back together. And I bought it and I was like, well, what's the catch? Like, it looks fine. It's at a salvage auction. What's going to be wrong with it, basically? So I just bought it and we'll find out.
Because what you said earlier, what's mad is it obviously with thumbnails and making a car look visually clickable, like something like I want to watch this. You have, when you get the ones that are like super duper smashed, obviously it makes people go, whoa, how the hell does that go back together? So how did you make that do so well with something that visually looked okay but behind the scenes it actually wasn't?
I think it was just the word scammed in the thumbnail. I can't really work out why else it would have done really well, because I was like, have I been scammed by buying this car? Because on the face of it, it looks like a normal car, doesn't look like it's been crashed, but what's it really like? And it went into, obviously I got it back and saw, hang about, yeah, this has all been caved in at the front here and someone's bodged it back together. The light's not plugged in, the fog light's missing. It's like you take off the front bumper and the wing and it's just completely crumpled underneath. So
when you've got that time to yourself and you're sat driving, maybe you're doing moving a car or whatever, and you've got that time to think like you did when you thought about doing the channel.
Yeah.
Do you ever think this build is quite a lot? This could break me. Do you spend a lot of time thinking about through the builds when you're kind of on the road?
See, I never really think. I never really get bothered about stuff like that because, again, I've already mitigated my circumstances. When I bought it, I already knew that if I buy it for this, it's definitely not going to cost me this much to fix. So therefore, I'll be fine at the end of it. So I should be either breaking even or making a little bit of money on it. I've already worked that out. So I don't really get bothered about stuff that comes up. It's like, if I need to spend an extra $2,000, it's like, that's an extra $2,000 on a door that I didn't budget for, but I budgeted for like 10 grand miscellaneous. It will just go into that. So I've already worked out that it should be fine. So it doesn't really bother me.
How difficult is it? So you mentioned earlier that your Huracán is currently away at the machine shop.
No, it's in the workshop now.
It's in the workshop.
Yeah, they came down to weld up the frame.
Because your last video on that was over 2 months ago.
Yeah.
How frustrating is it then as part of this process when you have to give a car away to have work done elsewhere?
Yeah.
And the timeline kind of becomes out of your control a little bit.
Yeah, it's really frustrating because that's what the problem I've had with the GTR as well. So the last video on the GTR was probably 3 or 4 months ago. And I did have, because it needs to go on a jig and I don't have a jig. So I've had to outsource that work. And I did have someone local that was going to come do it. They come to view the car. They're like, yep, no worries, we'll do it in 2 weeks. So I was like, cool, wait 2 weeks. And then they just kind of like ghosted me. But then after that, I was doing other bits. I had to bring other builds in to start doing that. So it kind of went on the back burner a little bit. And it just ended up sitting there for ages. And I was like, I need to sort that out. But because I've got other cars in to start doing work on it, it got put on the back burner. So
5 years in, we've got a Huracán sat waiting for a little bit, but back in the workshop. So hopefully that means there's a video coming not too long.
Yeah, hopefully less than a week. Yeah.
You've got an amazing white GT4 sat over the way that I'm sure you'll be tracking. And are you intending to keep that car?
That's not actually mine. So I bought that, I don't know, about 2 years ago now. And someone I play football with, he basically said, like, do you want any help buying cars and stuff like that? So I was like, actually, there's a GT4 up at auction. That'd be pretty cool. So he actually bought the GT4. I've paid for the repairs on it. So he owns like 70% of it. So
that sounds like a lad's summer track toy to me.
Yeah, exactly. He does want to go. He's a racing driver as well. So he wants to be back for an inch of his life. Yeah. So my first road test on that was at Silverstone. Officially gassed.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, was that the gassed on track day?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
That was such a good day. Was that literally the one that's just gone?
Yeah. And was it in May? Back in May?
Oh, mate, I had such a good day. Honestly, we said to Jamie, who's been on the podcast, and 4-Stroke Media, James, who runs it. That was one of the best car days out that I've ever been to. Like, it was the weather, the mix of cars. And I just got to tell a story because I get excited about it because it's such a good memory. I remember there was these track sessions and I was taking the pista and I got to the end of the slip road to go onto the pits to go onto the track. And I was the first car by like the traffic lights at the end. I was thinking, they have called all the cars down to go out on track. And I'm like buzzing to head out on Silverstone. Never been out on Silverstone National, like set up. And I was just ready to go. I'm looking in the rearview mirror, there's nothing behind me. And everyone was at lunch. And it was brilliant. They'd all gone to lunch.
I think I remember.
And I had this track session in the car to myself on Silverstone National. And I had like the best few laps that I've had. And then like gently I was coming round and extra cars were like joining, realising that someone was out on track. But like, what a good day that was.
I think I remember standing up in the paddocks and I just remember you actually just driving around. I remember seeing your brakes get red hot as you're coming into what's that S-bend? I can't remember what it's called now.
Louis, what's that S-bend? Luffield, that's the one.
Yeah.
It was honestly so good. And Chris Slicks nearly cooked the brakes on his X3M.
Yeah.
As he was going around, he just kept doing it. And the problem with that track stuff is you can start with half a tank of fuel on something like that. And you think, oh, I'd be fine. And then literally you look 2-3 laps later, there's nothing in the car. And then it's then a battle against a lad's inner mentality of how stupid you are versus the fun you're having.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that, so the GT4 took like a year to rebuild. And I'd never road tested it. And my first road test was driving out onto Silverstone track. I'd never been on a track before in my life either. Actually, no, I went to Castle Combe, a year before in the Golf GTI. But yeah, first road test was driving it onto Silverstone track. And I just remember that first lap, I was like, please don't brake.
Which does beg the question.
Yeah.
How confident are you in your own ability now?
I don't know if I was just confident or stupid. I think because the engine, actually, no, I did repair the gearbox as well, actually, because the gearbox had snapped the drive shaft in. So I had to completely take the diff out and repair that. So actually, I did take the gearbox apart. But, oh no, I must have been feeling pretty confident it was going to break.
Because you obviously understand way better than I do, despite being told God knows how many times by different YouTubers about the process.
Yeah.
Categorized cars, category N's, S's, B's, all the types of the letters of the alphabet. Should all of them be put back on the road?
It depends on the damage. If it's twisted a chassis, then probably not. But if it's just cosmetic and a few panels, it'd be absolutely no different to a normal car.
Do you think with the YouTubers that are new to the game and haven't necessarily had all of the experience and maybe learning it off YouTube, do you think it's safe to be putting those cars back on the road?
Like category N cars, fine, because they're just 9 times out of 10, they're just panels. And even if you do it badly, you're not going to really compromise the safety of the car. It would just look crap. But with category S cars that have had a bit more structural damage, like you're going to have to put it on a jig and it needs moving. Like, if you don't do that properly, then it can compromise the safety of a car. Yeah. So there maybe should be some sort of legislation and rules with rebuilding like more seriously damaged cars.
So in your story, you obviously have been working at that VAG Group dealer for ages, learning how to be a mechanic. What was that made you go into that kind of line of work when you were younger? Was there an absolute passion for cars there? Was it love for automotive, or was it more the kind of mechanical side of things?
Yeah, so my dad, I suppose, was my main influence for liking cars when I was younger. He used to have M3s, M5s. He had a Mitsubishi Evo 6. I remember him buying a Tommy Mackinnon as well. And that was brand new. He bought that, blue with white wheels. And I just remember the day he bought it. Actually, my mum picked it up in the dealership and come picks me up from my mate's house. So I've got it, the memories there. So I've always loved cars from what he had, and he used to swap cars like every 3 or 4 months, which is probably where I've got it from. And I just said, like, what cars he got now? It's like M3, M5. And weirdly, I don't like M cars, BMWs.
Someone else exists. Someone else exists. We're going to get hammered. I can see them. They're typing now and the comments will be delayed now.
It's weird because my dad loved M cars and that's all he ever had. He never had any Audis. Like the first Audi he got was when I was like 17, 18 from my memory. But I just don't really like BMW M cars.
Do you know what? I know, like, guys listening, I'm actually talking to you now like you're all in the van. I know you're all hating us right now. I know you are, because there's so many people that love M cars, and I have 95% of guests sitting there. Yeah. Chris just absolutely loves them. So does Matt. So does Ethan.
Yeah.
Oh, I just can't get it. I drove a G81 the other day.
Yeah.
And it really impressed me. I still didn't love it. Like, I didn't fall in love.
I like the new ones a bit more. The main thing I didn't like about the older ones is the interiors were just so awful. Like the seats were really grainy leather, and it's just really boring seat design. The dashes I wasn't really impressed by. Like the golden generation for me was like Audi's from like 2012 to like 2018, where the build quality was still good and the interiors are just really nice.
I love some of the uniqueness about them as well. So like, I actually had a Nardo Grey RS3 years ago, and like that 5-pot engine that's in this, not like anything else.
Yeah.
Like, it's so different, and they are so fast.
Yeah.
Like, you can make RS3s so quick, it is unbelievable. And I remember mine, there's like a road in the Cotswolds that actually goes towards Clarkson's farm. It's called like the Chalbury Road. It's where Harry's Garage does a lot of his tests along there and stuff as well. And I genuinely have been down that road a couple of times in like an RS3 and thought, I don't think I could get down this faster than anything else.
No.
They're baffling, some of those cars. But the M car thing's difficult, isn't it? Because do you not then, you obviously haven't done that yet, an M car.
Or I have, I've done an M2.
Oh, you have done an M2.
Yeah.
So is that the point that you do a car for YouTube? Did you do that for YouTube or did you do that to try an M car for you? What point?
Both, I guess. Yeah.
Because if you're saying about being true to yourself and kind of doing builds that aren't exceeding the kind of values, you can still make profit on them. Are you in that realm that you'll buy a car because it will do well on the channel, or are you still trying to do what you enjoy?
Again, both. So the M2 competition is what I had, and that's the first BMW that I've gone.
I did not see that build.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it was a couple of years ago. And it was probably the first BMW I've gone, actually, you know what? I would probably like to own that car. The interior looks a lot nicer now. And it looks nice on the exterior. It'll be
my
nice
favourite one.
Yeah. So I was like, if I'm going to do one, it's going to have to be that. So I wouldn't do like an E92 M3. I just don't really like.
No, I do like that. I'm very strange, but I'm not a massive fan of the brand.
Yeah.
But I like M2 comps. I like E92s. I do like his X3M that Chris has got. He's convincing.
Yeah.
But I like that one because it's nuts and it's got loads of power and it looks right. But I think the problem I've got, and everyone can debate this, is when there's so many variations of one car, I just struggle to get my head around it. It's like, I remember when you go down to that room in your house where you kind of dump everything and usually the printer's in there. And on your printer or your Wi-Fi box, there's this long code of letters and numbers. And I hate cars that are like that. I see these Beamers go down the road with 328 I63 465. And it's like, why is it named after a printer? I love cars with those kind of names. Like M2 Competition is a better name. It's more identifiable as kind of as that machine. I think that's my problem with it.
Yeah. So I actually got an M4 Competition back in 2016. My dad and I actually went halves on it. We bought it. But he had an A6 Avant bi-turbo. So it's like it was 320 brake horsepower one. And I remember following him one day in the M4. And he was booting it. He'd remapped it as well, so it had like 380 brake horsepower, and I could not keep up with him. And it was so frustrating because that M4 just could not put its stock power down. And I got so wound up with it, and I sold it after 3 months. Like, even in a straight line, it had DSG gearbox, and it would traction control would cut in, changing gear. In a straight line, in the dry.
So the two that I've driven like that, I've never driven an M4, weirdly. I did have the equal generation C63.
Yeah.
W24, I think it is.
204 is it?
Yeah, that's it. And that thing just so slow.
Yeah.
Like people never, and when you look at it from the back, the tyres are like that, and the contact patch of rubber is absolutely nothing of any substance on both corners. So it just breaks traction and it can't put down any power. I don't know, it really underwhelmed me, like in terms of power, those, because I feel like I've done the Cupid thing, but I've obviously been fortunate to drive lots of different things. But I either like the really small, punchy, powerful cars like RS3s and stuff like that, or just like if you're going to do it, bang the engine in the middle, distribute the weight and go, which is what you've got now. You're finally at your first supercar. And I watched a video 2 years into you doing, 2 years ago on your channel, and it was talking about taking YouTube full time. Yeah. And you obviously had a lot of questions about it. In that video, you said, I will own a supercar at some point of this channel. So you knew the day would come that you went to pick up the Huracán. How excited are you to have that build finished?
Yeah, I want to get it done in the next, obviously for summer 2025. So I want to get it done. I've kind of set a timeline for April. So the hard bit's now done. The chassis, I haven't actually been in to check. They finished over the weekend. It should be good now, which means the engine gearbox can go back in. So once the engine gearbox back in, you've got rolling chassis, I can drive it around. And then it's just cosmetic. It's just finding the brackets that are missing, fitting them, and then just putting the panels back on.
It's so expensive, man.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff I haven't bought yet because I refuse to pay the prices for it. There's literally there's a plastic trim that goes above the rear bumper but under the rear lights. It's just like that long, it's that big, it's hardly anything. The cheapest I can find is $3,500 second hand.
Nobody knows this that's watched this podcast. I've never mentioned it before.
Yeah.
But my Huracán that I've actually had now, I had a bit of an oopsie in about a year and a half ago. And I never mentioned it in case I wanted to sell it.
Yeah.
Because it's not categorized or anything.
Yeah.
But I did hit a deer going very fast. And it did do some significant damage on the front.
Yeah.
Well, when I say significant damage, it was all cosmetic. It smashed the front bumper.
Yeah.
It smashed part of the side bumper on the right-hand side, and it like completely destroyed like the coolant tank.
Yeah.
So like when it hit, the coolant tank smashed, and then all the coolant came out, and then the temperature went through the roof, and I had to just pull over and like stop straight away. Cause I could see that what I was trying to do is I was on a single track road in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And there was a pub a mile and a half away. And the car couldn't be picked up for an hour and a half. So I thought, if I can just get it to the pub without the temperature going, then I can sit in the pub. Get the car. That was the plan, but that never sadly happened. But I remember I decided, because I had 6 years of like no claims on the insurance at that point, to actually just repair it, not impact all those years of hard work on the insurance. But Jesus Lord, it was so expensive. Like I wish I knew more of you guys, those, what would have been 3 years ago now, on that car, because I remember like the argument I had with Lamborghini was over the headlight. And they said that the headlight was cracked, or it was a bracket that was cracked on the side. Yeah. So it needed a new one. And I said, it doesn't. I've actually got a 3D printer. I started fanning around with 3D printers. I had this phase that I was just absolutely obsessed with them. Yeah. And I was like, I could literally print that bracket off there and just put another one on. And he went, now you said that if you do that, you will lose your warranty on the car because it's not an official Lamborghini part that you're putting on it. The headlight was $3,000. Yeah. And it's like...
That's cheap. They're more than that now.
It's like... What? Why? Like, they just got you over a barrel. Like, why can't I print a 20p bracket? Yeah. You guys have got it right, to be honest with you. You probably get more price doing it the other way. But I just remember it's so expensive, these cars to work on.
Yeah, they shouldn't be able to cancel your warranty on the whole car. They should just cancel the warranty on the headlight. That's what it should be.
Well, I didn't have that detail. I wish I did. And then the other time that I kind of screwed something up with a Huracán was, he's not going to want to hear this, is he? He's going to start sweating in a minute. But the day Matt put his GT3 in the field at Dunsfold and nearly rolled it on its roof, I decided, well, your car's like non-cosmocomplementous now. You got to go and do whatever to it. Yeah. Track's there. There's no one on it. Off I go. So I took the Huracán out. Lap one, light comes on, brake pad's low.
Yeah.
It's like, no. Not on the only day I'm ever going to have the top gear track to myself. I was like, man maths.
Yeah, it'd be right.
It's got 2 laps. Yeah. I've at least got 2 more laps.
Be fine, yeah.
I wasn't.
Oh, you're not?
No, they were low.
Oh, really?
And unfortunately, I braked coming into the second to last corner, which everybody sees cut really fast before you get to that last one. And the car just didn't stop. I've never had a thing where like I've just braked a straight line. Yeah. I'm like this. I've seen the corner go past me, and luckily I'm on a runway, so it's just kept going. Yeah. And the corner's just like gone backwards like that. Like, where's it gone?
Please stop.
And I've looked in the right mirror, and it's just smoking from the back caliper. Oh, really? And I've pulled up, and it's like the smoke's pouring off the caliper. I thought it caught fire. Yeah. Like, 'cause it was so hot, like it was boiling, and I'd melted through the disc. Basically, I melted through the pad, what was left of it, and it had gone through the disc, and I did the disc. Oh, and I had to have a new ceramic disc on the rear left, and luckily the other one was fairly like fine, newish. They like matched up. It was £7,000.
Yeah, that's the predicament I've got at the minute because I need 4. I've got 3. I've got 1 more left. I've got to find.
So. And what kind of prices are you finding those for salvage? Because if it's like $7,000 when you go to like a dealer, or that was from Ricky at RE Performance, he bought the part and fitted it. But
so luckily, the Huracán shares a lot of its underpinnings with the R8. So R8 prices are a lot cheaper. So I've spent a lot of time working out. So part numbers on Lamborghini start with like 4TO. I don't know what the T stands for, but it starts 4TO. Audi R8 parts start with 4SO. And if they cross over, then you can put the Audi part on and it's fine. So all the brake, suspension, engine, gearbox, it's all Audi as well. So ceramic discs, they're all 4SO parts. So they're all Audi parts anyway. So I can widen my search band by looking for Audi R8 discs as well as Lambo discs, because everyone puts like Lambo tax on used parts just because it's got Lamborghini on it.
But it is still a lot of money. And like, especially if there's people listening out there, like the title of this video is how to maybe do this as a living in 2025 or 2026. There's so many people inspired by the videos that you guys make. It makes them excitable. People want to have a go, and people should have a go and start with that phone camera on the sofa
100%.
And get involved. But as you said, it is harder the more people that get involved with it. So you've got to carve out your own piece of content. But there's definitely going to be people listening to that kind of period of conversation. They're thinking, God, like those are big numbers. Like and the average UK salary says a couple of grand a month. And if that's what people are kind of averagely used to dealing with, then they hear, whoa, you're spending like $6,000 on parts for a car. Like, how is YouTube funding that? Like, how tight do you find it between like what comes in on the channel and then all these builds and like making it all work?
It like the early days, it was quite tight. It was like, I've never been one to, everyone's always just called me mentor because I'd take out like a 10 grand loan and go and just spunk 10 grand on a car and have no idea if I'm going to get any money out the back of it. And everyone's always been like, I can't believe you do that. You're like a lunatic. And I was like, it's never really bothered me.
Introverted with a touch of madness.
Yeah, because in my head, I've already sold it in my head, and I've already worked out I'm going to make a little bit of money. Worst case, I won't lose any. And that's always been my goal, to not lose any money. Then I don't care.
Crazy, because you say that in terms of the actual whole channel, you never look too far ahead.
Yeah,
you do for the whole build.
For that build, because it's got to make sense financially. But for the channel, as it grows, there's no real end goal, is it? It's like there's no ceiling.
So you mentioned it was actually the Porsche that you and your friend owned that was one of the builds that went the most to plan then.
Yeah. So that was actually quite a big crash. I never spoke to the guy that crashed it, but I got pictures, and it crashed on the M1. So he flipped it on the M1, crashed into the barrier, and the whole rear end was completely caved in. So we had to cut out. So on Porsche, like the Huracán, it's bolted in the rear quarter. The Porsche, it's all welded in. So you have to weld it, pop rivet in it as well. And I had to buy a rear quarter from Porsche, and it just all went, there's like 4 or 5 panels that go on top of each other. You've got everything bang on, but it just went together so well. Like first time, spot on. I couldn't believe it.
You're like coming home like tomorrow's going to be a bad day. Like something's going to happen on this car.
Yeah, because I remember taking it to the guy that welded it. I took it to his fabricating unit, and we were just there for a day, and we were just, all these parts we were just slotting on, and everything was just going, oh, it's such a good feeling when it just lines up perfectly first time, and you put the boot lid on, you shut it, and it's just, oh, perfect. It didn't have to mess around with anything. Nothing's out. And it just went together so well.
So in complete contrast to that, tell me one that didn't maybe go together so well.
If I'm honest, I've never had anything that's gone proper pear-shaped. I may have blocked it out. I don't know. But I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's gone really wrong. I'm sure there's people that have watching this and they're going to instantly shout something. Probably TVR, because I've had a TVR for about 4 or 5 years that's still...
Is that the rebuild that you put on a video on the channel saying that you can't complete?
No, that was the RS3, which I got rid of recently, and I couldn't... It's not that I couldn't complete it, it just didn't make sense to complete it. And the car was old, it had sat there for 2 years, and I could just foresee that it needed a new oil pump, which is $4,000. And I just knew in my head that I'd spend $4,000 on an oil pump and it would need something else. Just because of the type of car it is. It'd done 215,000 miles, twin turbo V10. There's just no way I'd only need to spend $4,000 on that. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to cut my losses on this. And because I'd had it for so long, I'd kind of lost enthusiasm as well.
But who buys that car from you once you've had a go?
A subscriber bought it from me, and he's gonna rebuild it. So I delivered it to him a couple of weeks ago. So
how many of the builds have you been fortunate enough to keep, and how many do you have to kind of get rid of like that for the kind of channel to make sense as well, or raffle?
I'd love to keep them all, but you can't. It's impossible. I mean, I don't...
Chris is having a damn good go at the minute.
Like, it'd be great just to keep them all, but they're just going to end up sitting there, just like the Porsche. I haven't moved it for 4 months. And it's not fair on the car for it to sit there for 4 months and do nothing. So it's like, there's no point in sitting. You might as well sell it to someone who's going to actually use it. And it's impossible for me to drive all of them all the time. Like, so for me, the main pleasure is actually rebuilding the car, not necessarily driving it, which may throw a curveball in there. I don't know. But I like the rebuild process more than driving it.
Are you going to do anything when it comes to like these builds like the Huracán? Are you trying to build that back to kind of stock or OEM? Or are you going to take that OEM plus?
Yeah, so I've never been one for body kits and stuff like that. I've always been OEM plus. So I'm always rebuild something back to OEM, but with the best OEM parts. This is usually what I do. I actually bought the rear quarters, the bumpers off Jordan from Gravity.
Okay, yeah.
Before he Liberty walked his Huracán.
Good idea.
So he took all the parts off of his car. So I've got all his panels.
That's nuts.
But with those panels come a Nero body kit with it. So
when he came on the podcast in this van, which was 2 years ago, I want to say, right at the beginning when I first started, he pulled up in that with the Nero kit on it. Well,
that's the Nero kit I've got.
And you've now got that kit.
It's in a container.
Oh, man. So it is going to look OEM plus.
Yeah, car. Not by design. It just so happened that it's got a carbon.
I think that's a fairly lucky thing to kind of come around, to be fair.
Yeah. So it's got a carbon wing, carbon side skirts, and carbon like diffuser, I think it is. So I mean, I don't even know. They're still wrapped up. I haven't even unwrapped them yet.
So you aim though on these rebuilds to be doing about 1 video a week on the main channel. Is that right?
I always want to try and do more, but it's impossible, honestly. Like you can start filming and there's always something that's going to delay it, and it always ends up doing 1 video a week. I always want to try and do like every 5 days. That's like my peak, but it just ends up being every week.
So talking about life, you've got some guys that drive for you. That original kind of business you started after you left repairing the cars in the dealer and you started the transport. You've still got that company, right? You've got a couple of guys driving from you.
Yeah.
So you said before we got on the podcast, that takes about 30% of your time still currently.
Yeah, and that's with me not driving. So I've only not been driving for probably a year or so now. So I was still driving so my first 18 months of doing YouTube, I was still full-time driving. So I would get up at 3 a.m. I'd go drive for 10 hours. I'd get back for 1 p.m. and I'd then spend the rest of the time up until like 6 p.m. in the workshop trying to film videos. And I did that because YouTube didn't pay anything for about a year, didn't get a penny. So that first year was me working full time and then getting in the workshop trying to film a video and put it out as well.
And that's whilst being married as well?
Yeah, I've got 3 kids now, but I had...
Married with 3 kids currently, running a YouTube channel and the business.
When I started, I had 1.
How do you make all that work?
I don't really know. Even me thinking back now, I was like, how the hell did I do that for 18 months?
So what would a week look like?
I'd on a Monday morning, I'd wake up at 3 a.m. I'd go deliver a car to Liverpool and back, or Liverpool, Manchester.
You said that so casually.
Yeah, well, I suppose it is. I've been used to it for so long now. It's probably casual for me, but deliver a car to Liverpool, over to Manchester, deliver another one, come back, get back to the workshop for like 1, 2 p.m. And then I'd spend 6 hours filming a video and then go home.
And then you've got to edit that video at some point?
Edit that video, upload it, and then start again the next day, yeah.
So your family have been very supportive through this then. Has there ever been a point where there's been like, you're not around a lot, or you're down the unit a lot, or?
Yeah, so I suppose my wife is very supportive that way. She fully acknowledges that it's something that's going to help us in the future. So go do it. But she's very good in that aspect. But me waking up at 3 a.m. doesn't impact anything. It's just impacting. Everyone's asleep until 8 o'clock anyway. So that first 5 hours is free.
She doesn't get tea brought up in the morning, but other than that, yeah.
Yeah, she does ask. But I'm not bringing up a tea at 3 a.m. So yeah, that first 5 hours of the day is almost like free because everyone's asleep anyway. So I'm not impacting anything. So I've got a good head start.
So you got to be prepared to work damn hard when you're doing this YouTube game. Did you? Did you realise it was be as much work as it was when you uploaded that first ever video on the iPhone on the sofa back then?
No, I don't suppose so. No, because when I uploaded that first video, I didn't expect it to do anything. I expected to do 2 or 3 videos and give up.
Do you know? I'd say that it's been amazing sitting here in the van with so many content creators. Obviously, I have business owners on and all different types of people, but content creators are never who I expect them to be.
Yeah.
Like I think there's this conception or preconceived idea that everyone's super ADHD to the max. Everyone's super crazy, got mad goals. And the reality is so many people are just kind of comfortable looking through the glass lens of that camera.
Yeah.
But sort of outside that world are quite a lot of the guys that are struggling to start because they're kind of not finding that level of confidence or maybe a bit introverted or the rest of it. What's it been like breaking through that barrier and then going to things like Gaston Track or these big car events, and then we're starting to get recognised through that process, and people watching the videos, and no doubt you'd have been seen in Tesco's, this, that, the other over the years, or at the services as the common one. Like, what's that been like for you as someone that's kind of come from that background?
I'm still not used to it, and I still don't fully like it. Like, I still don't like filming in front of people sometimes. I have got a lot better at it. So my first probably 3 or 4 years, I wouldn't film if someone else was in the vicinity, because I'd be too conscious of, oh, are they looking? They're going to think I'm an idiot. What am I doing? Oh, it's just an idiot with a camera.
Do you know where I think that's come from? Is like, you mentioned the guys that you watched were very similar to the guys that I was watching on YouTube growing up. All of them basically have been on the podcast now, which is Shmee, Paul Wallace. They were some confident boys.
Yeah, 100%.
Like when you start to have a go at like doing content creating and filming videos, like, and what we saw was them prepared to walk through Monaco, city centre in the middle with their camera. Not a care in the world. Not a care in the world. Yeah. And maybe that actually put off a bit of a generation of automotive YouTubers that wouldn't necessarily have had a go with it for a while, because the guys that are kind of at the top of the game now are all so different in personality to what those guys were back then. It's unbelievable, really. There's so many people that are, and I think maybe that's why these videos are doing so well, these crash damage stories, because you take people inside a small workshop in a comfortable environment and take them along on a story that they can enjoy. But you must have obviously inspired lots of people to go and have a go, and fans that you mentioned. Yeah. Is that the first time you'd ever sold a car to a fan, or had like someone that's watched the channel be part of the process?
Yeah, I guess the RS3 I did sell to someone who watches the channel, and he offered it back to me a couple of years ago, and I was I wasn't sure. And then I was like, you know what? It would actually be pretty cool to buy it back because it's my first car. And I contacted, he'd already sold it. So, but he was a subscriber to the channel, and he kept it for, I think he had it about 2 or 3 years. And it was a really low mileage car. So he cherished it as well. And they ended up selling it on. So,
Is your mind, even with the Huracán not finished, but a lot of the parts there, and you're ready to kind of go the next stage of the journey, how many builds are you ahead? I see there's things under covers, cars that you haven't put out yet. So you must be thinking some form ahead. What are kind of your plans going forward? You're 5 years into the YouTube space. That's becoming more saturated. Yeah. You got to watch that it doesn't get difficult to kind of drop off and keep ahead. Yeah. You must have some kind of plan, or do you still take it video by video?
Yeah, I still don't have a plan, but I also have a problem where I love buying cars. I hate selling cars, but I love buying cars. And that's a bit of a problem if you start buying too many cars. I love the process of researching a car. Like, is it going to be good to buy? Is it cheap to buy? Is it a good car? Go and buy the car. But once I've got it, I have it 3 months and I'm like, oh, don't need this car. It's pointless buying it. But then I hate selling them. But so you can imagine just going on Copart or a salvage auction, and you just have a field day, look at all these cars on, this one would be good for the channel. I can make a bit of money off this. But it is about, as you're trying to grow, trying to do stuff different, because you can't really buy the same car. So that's challenging as well, because I've kind of done all the Volkswagen Audi cars. So it's like, you see one, that would be a good car, but I've already done an RS4, so it's that kind of...
Do you get bothered when someone else has already done one as well?
No, not at all, no. As long as I haven't done one, it doesn't bother me at all.
Okay, that does widen the search area a little bit then as well. That's something. Yeah. And is that because you think that you're still in a kind of a unique space with the way that you're doing the content? How much do you watch the other guys then implement bits of kind of what the guys around you do into what you're doing?
I try not to watch them too much, because I don't want to end up copying them, because I probably would subconsciously start copying them. Obviously, I do watch Matt's videos sometimes and see how he does it, because obviously he does so well. It's like, what can I take from his videos that will do well? It's not like I'm copying him, but I'm trying to see what does he do differently? It's like, he's like explaining at the beginning of the video, like what's going to happen in that video. Maybe I should do that. I'll give that a go and keep people captured in that first 30 seconds, so then they continue to watch the whole video. It's not like I'm copying his content. I'm just
I think I remember the one that I saw that was the biggest hook he ever did was driving an RS6 at a wheelie bin. Yeah. And I just have got that imprinted on my brain. Just such like a whoa, okay then moment. But it's been amazing to hear your story and how you've got kind of to where you are today. I'm so looking forward to seeing that Huracán back and put together. And it's going to be weird seeing it on another car when I've actually had the person that had that kit on their car in the van before parked outside the doors of the van. Yeah. You mentioned 2 of the other projects that you kind of got tucked away under covers here as well. You just started on the Audi RS3.
Yes, the engine is currently at RE Performance getting rebuilt. I was going to do it myself, but just because I got the Huracán, I got a Skoda VRS3, I'll put an RS3 engine in a Skoda as well.
Ricky's doing a lot of work at the minute.
Yeah, I know.
Ricky could be full-time from all the YouTube gang at the minute. And that guy has got so much work on. But like when you go and stand down there with him and talk engines, there's just nothing he doesn't know when it comes to a VAG group.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never known someone so knowledgeable about how to just put an engine back together and what it needs and everything. But it's been amazing to hear your story, especially how you started and got through that initial phase and kind of pushed through that barrier to get to where you are today. Thank you for explaining a lot of what makes YouTube tick and how it all kind of works in this current day. And I look forward to watching many of the new videos. No doubt I'll be watching your van series when I'm thinking about doing something like that on my kitchen channel as well, because you're the only guy that's really done one that I've seen online. So very excited about that. Dean, thank you so much for coming on Road to Success.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Your story.
Cool. Nice one.
Appreciate it. Sweet.